we spoke to Louvre Abu Dhabi about what some of their very key artworks might smell like.
It's something that I think we don't think about enough in the art world, in exhibitions like scent.
Massive Attack had a show over last week. They set up to have the 100% renewable energy in the world's first ever event of its scale.
It's like finding those green solutions from getting toured from place to place.
There's an Egyptian artist who's kind of appeared whoosh, onto the scene. His name is Too Late. This guy has come out of nowhere and he's become a bit of a viral sensation now.
Sometimes it is a PR stunt. I remember distinctly when Lady Gaga first came on the scene and she never took her sunglasses off. She was like, I'm the one behind the sunglasses, like you will never see my face.
Hello everybody, this is Culture Bites. Today we're going to be speaking about the scent of art.
The carbon footprint of the music industry.
And Egypt's anonymous masked singer.
As I just said, this is Culture Bites. I'm Enas Refaei, coming to you from the National News.
I'm Farah Andrews.
And I'm Maan Jalal.
Hi.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Yes.
I'm so ready today for Culture Bites.
Oh.
You're so excited.
She's got energy. She's in the room.
I feel like, the kids have gone back to school. My children have gone back to school now.
Today?
Yes.
Yesterday.
Well, a few days ago when this podcast comes out.
Yeah.
This week. And it just feels like everything's like gearing up to be going back to events and we're getting like those busy schedules again.
Yeah, there's definitely an air of, you'll know this, I know this. You probably know this. My inbox is definitely telling me things are coming.
Yeah.
Concerts, dinners, lunches, all nice things, certainly not complaining. But Dubai, the UAE has remembered that we're all here.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that summer is slowly disappearing.
What are you looking forward to most?
I'm looking forward to and like nervous about the fact that like there's so many art exhibitions happening all at the same time. And so I'm like, oh, this is exciting. This is cool. I'm putting it in my calendar. I'm like, how am I going to be in 3 places at once? So that's going to be interesting to figure out. But it's fun, but it can be very draining.
You're going to be like Hermione Granger when she's revising for her owls.
With a time turner. Yeah.
Well, it's good we're talking about art exhibitions coming to the UAE because we're going to start off today with a very interesting, this was your pitch, Farah, in the editorial.
Yeah.
Very interesting art exhibition, which do you want to explain why?
Well, it's not. So it's a piece that we've worked on this week at the National, and it's looking at the scent of art and kind of what art might smell like. This is actually based on a project that's been led by the National Museum in Krakow in Poland. Am I saying that correctly? Is it Krakow? I always thought it was Krakow.
It sounds good.
I think it sounds right. Let's just go with the flow.
Let's run with that. And they have kind of been behind a project that looks into how a certain Leonardo da Vinci work smells or might smell, kind of based on the materials that it's painted on and that the kind of like objects in the painting itself. So inspired by that, we spoke to Louvre Abu Dhabi about what some of their very key artworks might smell like. And it's been like quite a nice kind of project to work on, kind of like unfolding kind of what pieces could smell like. So one in particular is Thurifer Angel in a Yellow Tunic, which is a piece that was painted around about 1520. So it's obviously quite a religious piece of work, Christian piece of work that has been in the past it was originally in a church. And so speaking to one of the curators, she kind of spoke about the wood that the painting is on and the fact that in the painting there's like incense and there's some fruit that you can see in the painting. And then in the background, you've got a kind of forest scene.
Nature.
There's that kind of freshness. So it's kind of like, it made me think of when you speak to people about perfume and those kind of like top notes,
Yes.
base notes, and those kind of like how it kind of responds to your olfactory senses kind of respond to things.
It's definitely something that evokes more memories than anything else, I think, out of our...
What scent, yeah.
Yeah. I do love how, it's taken quite seriously here, like smells.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I love it. When I go back to the UK and was like, oh, smells a bit doesn't smell as nice as the UAE.
Yeah.
I think if you were going to like do kind of like a rundown of what the UAE is, I think
Scent is up there.
would be up there definitely.
It's like when this is a bit of an offshoot, but it's kind of all about the senses. Like there's a new mall in Dubai that has music playing in the car parks. That's one of the senses. And then you go in and the mall has a scent. Like it's just, it's air freshener basically, but it just kind of smells like that mall now. And I'm like, this is a very nice sensory experience.
I love this story because, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but I went to art school because I wanted to be an artist, but I ended up not being an artist, obviously. But
You're an art expert.
I'm an art someone. So I remember in one of the classes we were in, this guy who was really an artist, he was like really like, just no one knew what he was talking about. And he put his hand up and he was like, can we just have some more scents in art? Like scents, like smells. Everyone was like, this guy is, what is he? Oh my, what is he? He's nuts. Like that makes no sense, like scents in art. But now when I'm like reading this, I remembered him. I can't remember his name, but it's something that I think we don't think about enough in the art world, in exhibitions, like scent. There's always the scent of like this idea of the scent of decay. Lots of artists like the idea of decay and death. It's very macabre. But the actual scent of paintings or the actual scent that the artist who would have painted the painting was experiencing when he was creating the work. I think that's like a really interesting insight into what would have also influenced artists as they're working. Because one of the paintings we were talking that are mentioned in the article, Still Life with Chinese ceramics and Oriental carpet, 1658, by the Dutch Golden Age artist William Kalf. So what's really cool here is that it's a very visual painting in that there's lots of stuff happening. There's like a Persian carpet, there's ginger, there's a porcelain jar, there's a pocket watch, there's a piece of bread. And so automatically that lends itself to thinking there would be a scent when he was actually painting that. And from what I understand from still lifes, they would leave them there for ages, especially if you have fruit. I mean, obviously that would eventually, rot. They didn't have fridges back then. So that would create a scent even when you're painting. Do you know what I mean? So that's it.
So, like in the studio.
In the studio itself. And, does that influence how you're thinking when you're working on something? I mean, all of us work on, when we're writing, we need, some of us need music, if there's a weird smell that we can't write properly. So I found that concept quite interesting.
I love that.
The other thing that one of the curators pointed out was that the kind of like, so these paintings were being produced in like the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, so hundreds of years ago. And they are using very, very different physical paint. Like the method is very, very different to today. Today we have acrylic paint. We all know what that smells like.
Yeah.
But these artists were using like saffron and these like very colorful, strong pigments. Saffron certainly has a scent.
Yeah.
And then like indigo and then plum and like beetroot and these like, this is not necessarily what's in this exact painting, but these like items that were like reduced down into pigment to create paint with, they all have very, very strong and identifiable smells. You
know what's interesting as well, the first painting you mentioned, that the Krakow Museum, was it? National Museum in Krakow.
The Da Vinci one, the Leonardo da Vinci one.
Yeah, the lady with ermine. That's actually my favorite Da Vinci painting. Everyone knows the Mona Lisa. The lady with ermine was painted before, and it's a woman holding an ermine, which is kind of like a ferret or a possum. And what's so interesting about the painting is that the reason why it's kind of famous, it's for a multitude of reasons, but the ermine or the pet that she's holding is reacting to something that the viewer can't see. It's outside the frame. So people always speculate that whether Leonardo da Vinci was like sort of trying to make things happen so that the ermine reacts, or so the woman sort of has an expression. And now I'm thinking, when I'm reading this, like, I wonder if there was, a smell there, like, from like the paints or whatever that the ermine would have been like reacted to, like been uncomfortable about.
Or even a predator, like maybe they could have smelt something else,
Yes.
Also, the ermine itself will have smelled.
Yeah, exactly. The ermine would have smelled. You're 100% right.
I do like the idea that then these could lend themselves to maybe people thinking in this like really abstract way, like what if you could then buy a perfume based on your favorite art piece?
Exactly.
Yes, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So if you kind of like going back to those like top notes, base notes, and like some like they're beautiful notes, right? So you've got like saffron, you've got cedar wood, and like these things could make like a very sellable perfume.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite smells?
Oh, one of my favorite.
Oh, no.
I mean, like literally. Yeah. My favorite perfume is Santal 33 by Jalal, which is not a cheap habit of my own.
what's the
Santal is like the kind of like very, it's like quite, it's like quite strong, quite earthy, but
earthy
quite
smell.
androgynous, I'd say, is that smell.
Nice.
I'm not
What about you,
floral.
man?
Creed Silver Water. It's probably the most expensive.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you've got even more expensive taste than me.
It's a beautiful smell, and the scent, and the Creed, the perfumist, they're like, very boutique. They created Grace Kelly's perfume when she got married to the Prince of Monaco. It's the bottle with the green flower on top. Like, they're very, very top. I love that song. But I'm also Arab, so I like oud. So
I love the smell of oud. I love it. When I was younger, I actually found it quite overpowering.
Same.
And now, as I've got older, maybe my senses have just weathered slightly, that I don't find it so overpowering anymore.
Is that your favorite?
It's one of my favorites. I think I love rose and oud together, but I love jasmine.
It is. Yeah.
So like anything that's like jasmine based.
But like any sense, your taste develops. Like there's lots of foods you didn't like when you were younger, and same lots of scents that you wouldn't have liked, but then you like them as you're older. So actually, one thing I was going to mention is, have you guys ever seen or read the book The Perfumist?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, it's a brilliant novel. It's a really weird book, but it's about this man who is like, kind of like, you would love it actually. It's like he's a criminal, psychopath, serial guy. But
yeah, it sounds like your kind of thing.
Show up your street fire. It actually is.
But he was born with this insane sense of smell that he can smell every single person. And he's on this mission to create the most perfect perfume based on people's smells. But what's great is that when you watch the film and read the book, the way they describe scent and the way they show scent in the film is really interesting. Again, it's that intersection between like, how do you visualize smell, or how do you describe smell, scent? So yeah,
I remember in the film they do a lot of kind of like, when he smells something, there's like almost like a graphic animation of like how he's smelling it.
So it's both a book and a film.
Yeah, it was
I need
first
to
a book.
watch and read.
The book is very short, so like a novella, and the film it's a bit different, but it's very good. It's one of those ones that they're both good.
Yeah.
This is like, I was going to say, like, when like something that people speak about all the time is kind of wishing that smell-o-vision existed, right? And it is so duff, but you see things on television that you just know are going to smell so amazing, and you kind of fill that gap in yourself, but you kind of like want to be able to smell it. Like scent it really is like, you can just get absolutely like picked up and thrown into a different memory. Just
triggering
from
thing.
Smell.
Is there a scent that, like, when you were saying about the art school, I went to art school briefly, but I just remember thinking to myself, like, that smell of like, sawdust mixed with acrylic paint, mixed with kind of a mustiness of the art space that you just enter into, takes me right back to my childhood, or like my teen years of when I was like in art studios a lot. And that's one of my favorite smells.
I think this is not a favorite smell, but it's a smell that definitely takes me back, is that wet rain on the concrete. I just think New Zealand, because it was wet all the time there. But it's one of those smells that it's just so, indicative of something.
No, I'm not going to tell that story. That's
Tell, Farah, tell.
That's a story from my personal memory bank.
Okay, so we're not going to get a smell.
No, you aren't.
No.
Oh, like a smell that's like very, I mean, of course there's like, okay, this is a silly one, but it's minted lamb and park and shop. Because when we were little, we lived in Dubai when we were like, me and my brother were like 6, 7, 8. And there's like, it still smells, well, park and shop has moved now from where it was in Safa in Dubai. But that, when I went back in like my early 20s, was like, oh wow, this smells like it did when I was 5.
Wow.
I was like, nothing in this room has changed. Everything had changed. But like nothing. I was like, oh, this is like the same place. And so that is, which is like supermarkets. Supermarkets definitely have a smell.
Yeah, they do, 100%. And even people's houses have a scent. Like everyone who I know's house has like a specific scent.
I mean, I've tried to signature mine. Mine is very rose and root.
Mine is sponsored by Diptyque, but it's fine. I'm so aware of making sure that my house doesn't smell like dog. So I use like a lot of like dog odor neutralizers on my soft furnishings. I remember the first time you came over and I was like, you're an honest person, does it smell like dog in here?
And I was like, no, it did not.
I'm glad a lot of people who have dogs, they don't care.
Yeah,
so it's nice that you.
And as soon as like something starts smelling, as soon as she starts smelling like a dog, off she goes for a little shower.
As soon as she starts being herself. So going back to this amazing like exhibition, curation, how can we experience it?
I think it's more about it's just a way of perhaps furthering your interpretation of the art. So it's kind of like it encouragement would be to kind of like look at the pieces, enjoy the pieces, take them in, but then also kind of like think about what you're seeing. So whether it's a possum, I've forgotten what that animal was already. Ermine. And you're like, that ermine might smell. Or if you're seeing like woodland, you're kind of like, we all know what a woodland might smell like, and that kind of like freshness, but also there's like a dampness. And it's kind of like that it's quite indulgent, but it is just kind of like just another way of like looking at and enjoying art. Oh, there's a fruit bowl. Oh, there's like it's a picture in a fish market. That would got a very tangible smell.
And it's so good to have those kind of questions in your mind when you're going around a gallery. I remember in the summer when I asked my daughters like what were their favorite piece and why. But this is like another question now that I could ask them.
Yeah, ask them. What do you think that smells like?
Yeah, what do you think it smells like?
Yeah, and it's interesting if you even take exactly what you said, which you said very beautifully, by the way. If you apply that to abstract art, like something that doesn't have like a fruit, or and think what would that big red moving thing smell like,
Jackson Pollock would
yes,
smell
a Jackson
like
Pollock. Would it
bergamot?
Something, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Right.
It's because I think of scent as like it's an afterthought. We never really think about it. I mean, for most of the time. So I think of it as a forethought when you're looking at the art, like, oh, it's part of our experience, which is
Yeah.
But the people who work in perfume, I can imagine it's like always at the forefront of their mind.
That must be how they work. Like, what does that smell like? What does that book smell like? Books. My
yes,
goodness,
books have a specific smell.
Such a smell.
Yeah.
We're just looking at books on the table.
They do.
They do have a smell.
Really have a smell.
Especially older books, secondhand books. And I always thought it was interesting that coffee beans are like a neutral to break the smell when you're smelling.
I think that's a myth.
No,
it's
not.
Someone told me it was a myth.
Really? But whenever I go to a perfume shop, it's definitely,
They have them.
it helps me.
Was that a like perfume developing thing in Alsacal Avenue art? And they told me it was a myth.
Really?
Oh.
But
I don't
Maybe
feel
it's a
like
placebo
maybe
effect.
it works.
maybe
but it
it's
doesn't
a kind of
work
like
as much as
it
you think.
resets your mind
Yeah.
slightly because that smell is so memorable.
Yeah.
And we all know
so
what coffee
strong.
smells
And we
like.
all smells what coffee smells like. It kind of stops you from thinking about the last smell.
And maybe
Yeah.
it does have that effect. But I even now when I'm like buying perfume, if I'm in the shop, I'll be like, give me those coffee beans.
Yeah. And you also feel a bit like, I know what I'm doing.
Oh, sorry, I will need my scent neutralized.
We're walking around the airport with a bag of coffee beans. Welcome back to the show today. So we were talking about what to discuss, and something that caught our eye was this, probably it's not that well known as how much music can take out of the environment.
Yeah, the potential environmental toll of live music specifically.
Live music specifically. So one of my favorite bands, Massive Attack, which is kind of like a dance. Do you know?
I know one song,
Go
right?
ahead.
It's the one when in the video, it's a baby in an embryo, in a uterus. That one.
Yeah,
This is
that's quite a famous. That's quite a famous one.
That is their
This is like
song.
a concert.
You're basically there live. So Massive Attack, a great electro kind of dance act, very trip hop from Bristol, from back in the 90s.
Oh my God, I've seen them live. Honestly, I just remember it at the big day out in New Zealand, this big thing. When I used to go when I was young. Okay, so I've seen them. I've seen them and Chemical Brothers.
Just so
and Red Hot
everyone
Chili Peppers.
really understands, whenever we sit in the editorials, man's like, music isn't my thing.
It's like, no, not
No.
me, meh.
I don't understand.
You guys can talk about
Our
this.
last question.
Our last question.
But now I'm invested. I've seen them live. I know them. Yeah.
They're really good.
They're cool. Yeah.
They're very cool.
Yeah.
I do remember the album cover with the Beatle on. Anyway, I'm talking. So Massive Attack had a show over last week, and it was a show in Bristol, which is kind of their hometown. They're quite famous for coming from there, which is also the home of Banksy and a lot of kind of left-leaning
Pretty creative town.
creative hub of the UK.
Yeah.
So if you are going to the UK or you want to go to the UK and you want to see something a little bit different from London, I think Bristol's always really fun.
Yeah.
So they set up to have the 100% renewable energy in the world's first ever event of its scale. So basically showing their music, but in a bid to tackle climate change, not making it climate friendly. So then we started looking into actually what it takes to put on a massive concert. So we've had huge tours this year. I mean, Taylor Swift comes to mind straight away.
She is.
We've had
always front of
Beyonce.
my mind.
Yeah.
Never far away.
Never far away. But actually, these huge events, which are brilliant and we all love them,
Yeah.
but they can really, they can take its toll on the environment because
Yeah, in what way?
in what way?
Yeah.
So actually, let's go over to the Eras tour.
Thank you for coming over to my research. So I did a little bit of kind of like reading into it because there are the ways that make sense. Obviously, you've got fans travel, right? So we all know that like Taylor Swift had just traveled herself around the whole world. She's doing I think it's like a 21 city tour. So it's huge. And so for those, you don't assume that everyone that saw the tour in London were in London. People travel people coming from the US, around the world. So there's that environmental toll. But then there's like the more tangible, like on the ground, on the day, people use a lot of single use, like everything's in a plastic cup because they don't want anyone to have glass inside the stadiums, which makes perfect sense, of course. But that's single use plastic. People, they tend not to. There are some venues I know in the UK that you'll buy like one plastic cup that's quite durable, and then they'll keep topping that up for you for the whole concert. That's like an environmental measure that some of the venues are taking, but it's not happening like across the board as an industry standard. And then there's the more significant kind of air travel, ground travel. These tours, like what we see, that stage literally has to get picked up, dismantled, picked up and moved. And so
that's huge.
They're huge.
Yeah.
For Taylor Swift's Eras tour, there were two stages. One was always kind of like a step ahead, being set up at the next location because they don't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And then like obviously there's like the logistics teams that are on the ground that kind of like know this inside out. They're going into the venues, they're doing this like kind of like security sweeps, then they start setting it all up. They're geniuses. But then how do they literally get every single element that you see that makes up, we're going to use Eras Tour as an example. I'm saying that like an American now. The Eras Tour is how I would say it. Era is how Taylor would say it. So for the Eras Tour, there are 90 trucks exclusively dedicated to hauling equipment around for the shows, which is, and then another tour I looked up was Beyonce's Formation Tour, which was actually a few years ago now. It was in 2016. But to get the Formation Tour stage from the US to the UK, she used 7 Boeing 747 cargo planes and 70 trucks to move her stage.
70.
And Taylor used 90 trucks.
Wow.
And so that isn't even counting. Then people, obviously there's so much conversation around Taylor Swift and private jet usage, and Jay-Z and Kim Kardashian and Travis Scott. All of these celebrities are very spoken about for their private jet use. And the fact that those jets are kind of taking these 15-minute flights that could have been just an hour and a half drive, guys.
But I think it's when their time is worth
100%.
so much. I mean, I saw this video of Stormzy in the UK, like going to a gig on a helicopter, going back to his like brother's wedding. I mean, I don't know if it was his brother's wedding, but it was just like his time is so precious that he's trying to fit in his life. And in order to do that, he's using these kind of like expensive means of travel.
I mean, every year we watch Leonardo DiCaprio private jet into an environmental
and then he's on his yacht.
Yeah, that's ludicrous. So how is this Massive Attack concert? It's 100% carbon foot free. Was that it?
Well, yeah, that's what they tried to do.
Carbon neutral.
So like one of the easy ways they did it, which was prioritizing local people to get pre-sale access to tickets. That's also something that Glastonbury often does.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like making sure that it's available to people who are within the vicinity of the concert. There were also free electric shuttles from car parks and train stations to stop people from grabbing taxis or trying to use other methods of transport, which might be burning fossil fuels. And the band reduced those truck loads.
Yeah, so see, this is the significant
This is the big
thing.
one, right? So looking at those 90 trucks is like an insane amount. I can't even imagine like 90 trucks arriving in like on a location set, what that would even look like. But for Massive Attack, obviously not as big as Taylor Swift in terms of like what.
And this
they
is
carry
like a
around.
one-off concert, not a world tour. Yeah,
they reduced it from 25 down to just 2.
Okay.
Just 2. And they were battery powered trucks rather than diesel, which is kind of cool. So it's kind of like, I suppose they're trying to, as usual, Massive Attack, really outspoken, big on Palestine. They often use their platform to talk about quite big issues. And this is something that is obviously close to their heart. And I think it's good to see that people are trying to be avant-garde and think about it in a new way, and perhaps, you know, take into consideration factors that maybe we hadn't thought about. I had never thought about the environmental cost of me loving music.
Exactly. Yeah. Another band who have spoken about it an awful lot are Coldplay. So they are currently on their Music of the Spheres World Tour, and that tour has been running since 2021. And so when they announced it, they pledged to reduce their carbon emissions from show production, freight, band, and crew travel by at least 50%. So they've not said they're going to go carbon neutral. They haven't said they're going to be an entirely eco tour, but it's just that kind of aim of reducing those carbon emissions. And in June this year, they put out a statement to say they're happy to report that their direct CO2 emissions from the first 2 years of the tour are 59% less than their previous stadium tour, which ran from 2016 to 2017 on a show-by-show comparison. And those numbers have been verified by an independent initiative. And so
it's serving a lot of, like, you know, teacher's pet.
100%. But I guess it is just, so this tour has been very slow, right? So it's been running since 2021.
Because they're walking everywhere. They're not in a private jet.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go across the world. But maybe that's like part of it. So it is like finding those green solutions from getting tour from place to place, finding local suppliers, things like, I'm kind of like filling in gaps here myself, but like how they can make this a more sustainable tour. And yeah, the fact they've been running it since 2021 when it's been going for 3 years.
I guess it
would
makes
I like
you
the
think...
would I like Eras to run for 3 years? Yes. Will it? No.
I guess it makes you think, like, why are some of these artists who going to these extreme measures? You know, they could cut back in some way. Maybe their tour could be longer, but I guess they're also trying to respond to like the fact that they're trending right now, that there's a lot of, you know, fan interest in them. And I think if it was, because, you know, Coldplay couldn't have done this when they were starting out, right?
No,
I think
100%. They
now that they have it, they're like an iconic classical whatever, people are willing to wait.
Sorry.
It's just a really interesting point you say about, like, you know, bands just starting out, because I think actually the cost of these moving parts of these huge big events has meant that a lot of bands, like really like smaller, younger bands, perhaps aren't touring that much anymore, because actually paying for all this amount of stuff can put you out of pocket.
Yeah.
So there's not as much kind of like grassroots people traveling, but there's a lot of grassroots DJs traveling, which is...
I thought you were going to say there's a lot of grassroots TikTok artists going viral. I mean, that's a very...
that's a great seg.
Yeah.
There is an artist, he's Egyptian. I'm talking about music. Is an Egyptian artist who's kind of appeared onto the scene. His name is Too Late.
Can you please explain how that is stylized?
Yeah, so it's TUL8TE, which in my head is too late.
Yeah, it's too late. Yeah, you're right.
It's too late.
Too late tea.
But it's like a fun way of writing it, I suppose. Now, so this guy...
It's a cool way.
The interesting thing about him is he wears a balaclava in like all of his videos. And it's...
Wait. It's a crocheted balaclava.
Yeah.
It's like a white... You know, I don't know if you've seen... some men who wear kendoras, they'll wear like a white sort of crocheted, like very, very short beanie that's like made of like white. I don't know if it's cotton or what it is. And then they put the agal on top of that. Yeah. So he sort of turned that white thing into something that covers his whole face. Almost like a doily, you know. If you know.
It's giving some
It's giving doily, yeah.
It's kind of giving doily. But this guy has come out of nowhere and he's become a bit of a viral sensation now. He has clocked up millions of views, millions on YouTube.
And TikTok.
TikTok
is the...
And most listened on Spotify, Arab artists.
And Anghami.
Anghami,
So this guy has kind of, like, we don't know what he looks like. but we do know what he sounds like.
Very much what he sounds like.
And it's really nice. So I was kind of a bit apprehensive. I was like, oh, what is this going to sound like? Is it going to be a bit too like cliche for me? But actually, he's taken this kind of like very like relaxed dance music vibe. It makes me feel a lot of. Actually, can we play a clip? It makes me think a little bit of like hip hop, electronica. It's like easy listening.
It's a good fusion of these.
It's a good fusion. But what I really like about it is that even his videos and everything are leaning towards this quite glamorous vision at the moment that we're getting of the Middle East, of the Arab aesthetic, especially of the Cairo aesthetic. And there's lots of Instagram pages that are really kind of delving deep into, you know, those kind of almost romanticizing the Middle East in that beautiful
90s.
way. Yeah, a really
90s.
nice way. Like you're drinking your coffee cup on your balcony and you're like peeling an orange and there's like Cairo in the background and it's very romantic.
It's very soft. The visuals are very like inviting and soft and
it makes you think that it's all been filtered a bit.
Yeah.
Which
but
I love.
in like a very beautiful.
So the masked Egyptian artist known as Too Late, he's also been performing around Cairo. He's been to the jazz bars there. He opened for a really popular band called Kairoki. And now his like popularity has grown and grown and grown and it's exploded. Now we're getting all the theories over who this guy is.
Who is he?
And one of the big theories is he's Amr Diab's son. So Amr Diab, massive, huge Egyptian star. If you haven't heard,
change the music game
completely.
Yeah.
If you live in the Middle East and you haven't heard any Amr Diab, I don't know where you've been living. I'm not going to judge you though. Apparently I say that too much.
You're going to encourage people. You are going to encourage people to come out from underneath their rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
YouTube him. Amr Diab. Look him up.
Amr Diab. YouTube him.
But I was speaking to our producer who is Egyptian, and she came up with a really interesting theory about why potentially he is Amr Diab's son. Is because when you listen to Too Late singing, his pronunciation in Egyptian Arabic isn't purely Egyptian Arabic. It sounds a bit, like she said, a bit not really Egyptian. And Amr Diab's kids grew up in London. So potentially there's like a real connection there from a linguistic perspective.
Somebody on our team claims to know who he is.
Okay. Oh, really? I didn't know.
I don't have like full names and I don't want to like burst bubbles, but like I think it's probably a little bit like Banksy, where people definitely know who Banksy is. People know Banksy's full name, but it's just kind of like this like agreed like.
Let's all just be quiet.
Let's just enjoy the anonymity here.
Yeah.
Because like Too Late, very current, very now, not the very first person to be anonymous in music, right?
It's a thing. It's a trope.
It's definitely, and it seems when you think like it would hinder a career, like, oh, I don't know who that person is behind that mask. It kind of like, it creates like mystery, a bit of hype around them. Yes. You're like, oh, who is this person that's like creeping up on charts, seeing all over Instagram, seeing all over TikTok, but not seeing behind that crochet balaclava.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. And like, obviously like some of the very like big like household names that have like kind of stuck behind masks. Marshmallow,
huge.
Sia. We didn't know who Sia was for a very, like we now know who she is.
We now know who she is.
But still, I can't think of her face because I just think of the wig.
She was a big wig.
She was she wore a wig that covered all of her face.
It was a white bob. Like an oversized white bob but with a huge fringe, right?
It's like a caricature of Anna Wintour.
Yeah.
I suppose it's something where you just don't want to be judged upon your, like what you look like. You really want to be judged upon your sound. I think with music, like that is the main thing.
Well, I'm going to push back a bit on that. You know me, I'm a pusher.
And we're also a big music person.
I'm a big music guy.
Man, the music contrarian. Tell us what you think.
Sometimes it is a PR stunt. I remember distinctly when Lady Gaga first came on the scene. And she never took her sunglasses off. She was like, I'm the one behind the sunglasses. Like, you will never see my face. Remember her first music video, was it Paparazzi?
Oh, no.
And she was in the
Poker
face. Yeah. Sorry, Paparazzi. She had the sunglasses, she had the fringe. And then in a Barbara Walters interview, she was like, you know what? I never do this, but I'm going to take my sunglasses off for you. And that was like a real, moment. Like, oh, we're seeing her face, you know? And a part of me thinks now, when we think of who Lady Gaga is, you know, like it probably was, you know, not a PR stunt, but she probably wasn't taking it's a look, right? To be hidden behind something.
But I think that is also, for a lot of artists, particularly like Lady Gaga, and like we've spoken about her already this episode, but Beyonce, there's a stage persona, right?
100%,
And there has to be, the person that you're seeing in interviews, seeing on stage, seeing in music videos is not the same person that you'd be sitting having a coffee with.
Yeah.
And like Charlie XCX is like very much like herself. Like we know who Charlie XCX is, and she's huge at the moment, just unstoppable. But she's basically, and I think it was with the New York Times this week, said, I basically don't believe anything I say in interviews. I just sit here and lie. I'm here having fun. I'm on a press tour. I'll say whatever I want. None of this has any kind of like repercussions for her because she just says what she wants. I mean, she invented the brat summer, and this is very brat behavior. But like, it's,
love that. I'm going to be more brat now.
From what I have understood of the word
guys.
brat. Hey, the brat summer's nearly finished. It's the 20. You've got 3 days to be brat.
Hey, I live in the UAE. The summer never finishes.
We're going into a demure fall now. Just so
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
we're going into demure fall.
We all know that I've lived demure fall for the whole of my life.
Sorry, I cut you off quite rudely.
No, I liked it. It was quite brat. And so yeah, she was just like, this is like what I'm saying here is just all like stage persona. It's just like this is part of it, and like so that's just like a kind of conversationally in interviews. But there's like no one owes us. This is me, my purest me. So be your character. Be your Lady Gaga behind sunglasses in the early 2000s. Be Too Late in a crochet balaclava.
Be the gorillas in an animation.
Yeah. So what you're saying
is,
what you're saying is that all of these people are kind of wearing masks.
Oh,
right?
How profound.
How profound. So it's either a physical mask or it's like the alter ego. You know, Sasha Fierce, isn't that Beyonce's alter ego? Like it's a kind of a mask, right? Everyone's wearing a mask.
What would your alter ego be?
Oh, I don't know. I think I don't know.
Mine would be Sleepy Farah. She just likes to be asleep. I would like to be curled up and sleeping by a fireplace. Don't put me on stage.
I'm just pure bratty, Enas. I'd want to be like a rock star, I think. If I could. It's never going to happen.
What yin and yang energy we bring to this.
We really do. You know, I played the drums at high school.
Did you?
You know, I played the piano at school.
Oh, God,
I played the saxophone.
Look at us, we're a band.
Why aren't we a band?
Yeah.
I'm wearing a wig. I don't want anyone to know who I am.
I will wear very large sunglasses. I should start wearing sunglasses on this podcast with my eyes.
Oh, well, that was great. On to recommendation of the week.
Who wants to go first?
Since we both have, I'll go first.
Go.
We can go me, you, and then you. So that way.
I'll be the rose between your thoughts.
Yeah. So I have recommended a book, a very famous, popular book that we all know, Da Vinci Brown? Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. I mean, it's a brilliant, it got a lot of flack when it first came out as not being, you know, the most well-written book. And, you know, it had all these, you know, conspiracy theories around it. But reading it again now, it's a really great access point to learn about our history because Dan Brown is actually a great writer in that he can write things very simply without flowery language. And you get to learn about our history in a very accessible, fun way in the middle of a, you know, murder mystery. So who doesn't love that?
And in the middle of a museum.
And yes, exactly.
Love that. Farah, what's your recommendation of the week?
My recommendation of the week is something I haven't actually consumed yet as a viewer, but by the time this episode comes out, I will have. It's the new series of Only Murders in the Building is coming out. The first episode is coming out on the 27th of August. So that is today.
Very soon.
At the time of recording. So yeah, it's the fourth season of the show that stars Martin Short, Steve Martin and Selena Gomez. Have either of you watched it?
No.
I watched the first season.
Would you like me to elevate a picture for you very quickly?
Please.
Yes.
It's set in the Upper East Side in New York, and there's a murder in an apartment block, and then 3 of the residents in the apartment block on the side are really obsessed with this murder mystery podcast, and they all kind of find out that they basically are inspired by their podcast to solve the murder in their building. And so then they start a podcast of their own, kind of like trying to solve this murder in their building. And it's got Steve Martin and Martin Short in it, who are 2 of America's comedy greats.
Yeah,
so it's like there is some physical comedy. There's like real laugh out loud, belly laugh moments. And then to appeal to the younger generation, you got Selena Gomez, who is actually really, really good in it. She's so likable.
She's a great actress.
She is a great actress.
She's really good.
Appealing to my demure fool, she wears the most beautiful, like cozy coats. And in this season, it looks like they're making it's like very meta. There's going to be like a TV show made of the podcast in the TV show. And they have like Zach Galifianakis playing Martin Short's character.
Is Meryl Streep in this one?
She will be, yeah. Oh, the A-list cameos in this are, you've got like Paul Rudd, Meryl Streep.
Wow.
And Eva Longoria. And Eugene Levy plays Steve Martin's character. It's like so many levels. I love it.
Cozy crime, Angela Lansbury-esque kind of show. I love that. Yeah,
love me some cozy crime.
I'm going to watch it. You've inspired me.
Oh, it's really, really good.
Yeah.
Start in the beginning. Disney Plus. Out now.
And then on to I'm reading again. I'm reading books. Look at me.
Whoa.
What is she doing?
Show them the cover. I love the cover. I think it's a clever book cover.
Yeah, if you are watching this, it's Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton.
I say Alderton.
I don't, Alderton or Alderton. She also had a famous podcast at one point.
Yeah. And she's a newspaper columnist.
And she's a newspaper columnist.
Wait, do we know what she looks like?
Yeah.
We do know what she looks like.
So she's not a mystery. Are you Dolly?
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah, the cover's really fun because it's got parties, dates, friends, jobs, life, and they're all kind of scribbled out. My children thought I'd done that. And I had to explain that I hadn't. It's a really fun book about, a woman who is definitely of my generation, of my era, growing up and living in London and between places and going to university halfway through. But it's been really fun. Can't really put it down because I relate so much to it. But like on a weird level.
It's a real like coming of age memoir. It's not a
It was
novel,
quite popular when
memoir.
it came out.
It was very popular, and it did win it was one of the Sunday Times bestsellers, but I'm reading it quite late. So lots of people probably have already read this.
No, but that's a nice thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm every cliche going. The year that came out, I basically bought that for every girl I know and love for Christmas. I was like, have this. You're welcome.
That's what Oprah does.
Have this. You're sorry, me and Oprah.
She buys everyone her favorite book of the year. So,
No, it's a good book. It's a good book.
That's what we should do for Christmas.
Yeah.
Buy each other our favorite book of the year.
I learnt as well that she's a tall lady, which is close to my heart. That's it for today from Culture Bites. Thank you so much for watching or listening.
And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please follow and subscribe on your choice of podcasting app.
And don't forget to tell your friends and family and follow us on social media.
Bye.
Bye.